What is going on, everyone? My name is the California Cougar, and welcome back to another video. Today, I thought I'd do something a little fun. I'm going to be talking about who I would have voted for at each Survivor Final Tribal Council. So basically, for each Survivor season, if I were on the jury, who would I have voted for? There's 40 seasons, so I want to get this thing started because this could be a long video otherwise. So let's get right into who I would have voted for if I were on the jury. So starting off with season 1, we have Kelly Wigglesworth versus Richard Hatch. I would have voted for Richard Hatch. I respect Kelly's game physically, or her physical game. I thought she was really good at challenges, but I mean, Richard Hatch just laid out the blueprint for how the game is played. He was great strategically and socially, whereas Kelly didn't really have that. So, yeah, pretty easy one for me. Richard Hatch gets my vote. Season 2, we have Colby versus Tina. And this is an interesting one because at first I was like, oh, Colby easily gets my vote. But after looking back on it, Tina was a better player than I thought she was originally. I probably still would have voted for Colby, though, for one simple reason. His physical game was just so good. And yeah, you could say the same thing about Tina's social game, but when you look at her physical game, it's weak compared to Colby's social game. So that's really what makes the difference here, is Colby's social game, I think, was better than Tina's physical game. I feel like strategically they were about even. They pretty much played the game together. So yeah, that's really what makes the difference for me. Colby gets my vote. Survivor Africa, Season 3, we have Kim Johnson versus Ethan. I wish Lex was there, but between the two of them, Ethan easily. I mean, Kim Johnson did absolutely nothing. She probably shouldn't have even been in the Final 2. If production hadn't screwed up a challenge, the Final 4 Immunity Challenge, there's a good chance Lex would have won that challenge, and she would have been voted off of Final 4. So, yeah, Ethan easily gets my vote there. Season 4, Survivor Marquesas, we have Vesepia versus Nalia. I think I would have voted for Vesepia. I mean, Nalia didn't really do anything. I don't really like this Final 2. I don't really care for either player. I wish Kathy was there, but between the two of them, I do think Vesepia was the better player overall. She took notes on the castaways to help her in that Final 4 Immunity Challenge, which she needed to win. And yeah, Nalia did make the flip, where obviously Vesepia wouldn't have even made it if it weren't for that. But other than that, Nalia didn't really do much. Again, I wish Kathy was there. But between the two of them, I do think I would have voted for Vesepia. Survivor Thailand, we have Brian versus Clay. I hate this cast. I hate this Final 2, but Brian was undeniably a great player. Hands down, my vote would have gone to him. 100% over Clay every time. Survivor Amazon, we have Jenna Maraska versus Matthew. And I wish Rob Sesternino was there. I wish Rob Sesternino was there. I wish Rob Sesternino was there, because he easily would have gotten my vote over anybody in that game. But between Jenna and Matthew, Jenna, hands down. I mean, Matthew was so inept. He even admitted he had no idea what he was doing. He had to ride Rob's coattails throughout the whole thing. Yeah, his physical game was decent, but even then, Jenna still won more challenges than he did. So, yeah. And yeah, Jenna did want to quit at one point, which is kind of a turnoff, but she got her head back into the game, and I can respect her for that. Definitely more so than Matthew, who just was out there for the adventure and didn't do anything strategically or socially. Both his strategic game and social game were terrible. So, yeah, Jenna, easily. Survivor Pearl Islands, we have Lil versus Sandra. I hate this Final 2. I wish Johnny Fairplay was there. But I have absolutely zero respect for people who get voted off pre-merge and then come back later in the game through some dumbass twist, some freaking dumbass, garbage-ass freaking twist that nobody knew about. She came back in, ended up screwing over so many people. Sean, Andrew Savage, Ryan-O, they all got screwed by her coming back into the game. And the same goes for Burton as well. And then she just kind of rode her way all the way to the end. She kept playing the nice card, which was so goddamn annoying. I don't like Sandra, but Sandra didn't get any votes throughout the game, and she did have a decent enough social game, I guess. So I would have voted for Sandra between the two. Again, I hate this final two, but between the two of them, got to give it to Sandra. Up next, we have Survivor All-Stars with Boston Rob versus Amber. I would have voted for Rob. I think he played one of the most dominant games ever. That jury was so goddamn bitter, especially Lex, Alicia, and Big Tom. Sheehan was not bitter. She was genuinely pro-Amber, I think, which is kind of confusing, but hey, I mean, she saw what she saw out there. We just saw her on TV. That's all. So who are we to judge? But still, I would have voted for Boston Rob. He just played such a dominant game. Survivor Vanuatu, we have Chris versus Twyla. I think I would have voted for Chris. I love a good underdog story. Chris was someone that was supposed to be voted off at the first tribal council, and then he ended up getting all the way to the end, fighting back, staying in it. He made an alliance with Scout and Twyla and Eliza, which I think really helped him. And Twyla played a good game, but in the end, I just think Chris's game was a lot more engaging and a lot more compelling, so I would have voted for Chris. Survivor Palau, we have Tom versus Katie. I mean, this is easy. Tom, hands down. Katie was a joke. She did nothing. Moving on, Survivor Guatemala, we have Danny versus Stephanie. I think I would have voted for Danny here. I mean, Stephanie played a good game, I think, although her social game was awful, whereas Danny had a great social game. Physical game, I thought, was slightly better than Stephanie. And then, strategically, Stephanie played better, but Danny did what she needed to do. She won that community challenge. She off her advantage at the auction. She made alliances with as many people as possible, like made relationships with them. She used her social game as her strategic game, basically, which is something I admire and something I really like. So I like Stephanie's game, but I would have voted for Danny. Survivor Panama, Exile Island, we have Aris versus Danielle. Oh, I wish Terry was there. It pains me to see Terry go out just before the end, but between the two of them, I think Aris would have gotten my vote. Danielle didn't really do anything for me. Aris was at least kind of a competitor with Terry, so there's that. So yeah, I think I would have voted for Aris. Survivor Cook Islands, we have Yul versus Ozzy versus Becky. This is our first final three, and I would have voted for Yul. I love Ozzy. I love his physical game, but Yul had one of the best games I think I've ever seen from a winner. He was a master strategically, great socially as well. He used his hidden immunity idol to get Jonathan Penner to flip on his tribe and give the I-2-4 the majority, whereas Ozzy's whole game was immunity challenges. That's really what it was. And that was his whole strategy, which, if that's his strategic game, then fine, but, I mean, the way Yul played, I don't think we'll see anything like that ever again, so gotta give it to Yul. Survivor Fiji, we have Earl versus Cassandra versus Dreams. Earl, easily. I don't even think I need to explain. Dreams and Cassandra were horrible. I don't necessarily hate them. They're just not good players. Earl was a fantastic player. Would have liked to see Yowman in there to see how Earl would have done. I think Earl probably still could have pulled that off, but who knows. Either way, Earl gets my vote in this situation easily. Survivor China, we have Todd versus Courtney versus Amanda. Going into this tribal, I would have expected to vote for Amanda, I think. But after watching that final tribal council and watching like Amanda just totally implode and Todd just rise to the occasion and just give straight up honest answers. He admitted he was deceitful and all that. His answer to John Rivera was perfect. After all that, I think Todd would have gotten my vote. So, yeah, out of those three, probably Todd. Survivor Micronesia, we have Parvati versus Amanda. This one's tough. For the longest time, I had no idea who I would have voted for here. I think they both played great games. I don't think either of them would have made it as far as they did without the other. However, I think I like Amanda's game a little bit more. Oh, it's so close. Parvati had a good game, but I think I like Amanda's like kind of underdog story, sort of, a little bit better. Like, she was kind of an underdog. Parvati, yeah, she did form the Black Widow Brigade, although I feel like Suri deserves more credit for that. If Suri was there, I would have voted for Suri, but I think between the two of them, I think I would have given my vote to Amanda. I know that's a controversial choice, but yeah, they both played really good games, I think. But I think Amanda did it just slightly better. Survivor Gabon, we have Bob versus Susie versus Sugar. Another garbage final three in my eyes. I don't like. I wish Maddie was there, or even Kenny. I think would have been a great finalist, great candidate to win. But I mean, between the three of them, probably Bob. I feel like he was the least of the three evils there. And I mean, Sugar and Susie were just terrible at that final tribal. Bob, like all three of them were terrible, but Bob was the least terrible. So I think I would have voted for Bob, probably. Survivor Token Teens, we have JT versus Steven. I love this final two. This is one of the best final twos out there. One of the best finalists, like some of the best finalists ever. I think I would have given the slightest edge to JT. Very slight. I think Steven played a fantastic strategic game, although he did kind of implode at the final tribal. Partially because JT was doing so well at Final Tribal. Maybe that would have played a part, but yeah, JT just kind of dominated physically and socially, so I think I would have given a slight edge to JT there. Survivor Samoa, we have Russell versus Natalie versus Mick. Russell. I cannot stand the fact that Russell did not win this game. Like, that jury was so goddamn bitter. It was actually ridiculous. Oh, but Russell played a horrible social game. He dominated strategically. He's one of the best strategic players out there. He was a game changer. He found idols without clues more than once. He was the first person to ever find an idol without a clue. Although you could say Gary was, I guess, but for this type of idol, yeah, Gary from Guatemala, I mean. But for this type of idol, like, Russell broke ground. He was the first person to find an idol without a clue more than once, I should say. So, yeah, and he just dominated that game. He took an alliance of 4 at the merge. They were down 8-4, and he brought him back. The only move Natalie made was the Eric move. Like, everything else was Russell. All Russell. Natalie didn't do anything else. Mick did nothing, so easily my vote goes to Russell here. God, that left a bitter taste in my mouth when Russell did not win. That is a crime. So, moving on to Season 20, Heroes vs. Villains, we have Russell, Parvati, Sandra. I will say this about Russell's game in Heroes vs. Villains. It was not good. His jury management was piss poor. I thought he did fine in Samoa with jury management, but in this season, it was admittedly piss poor. And I think I would have voted for Parvati as a result. I feel like Parvati played a fantastic game this season. I think Sandra's game was highly overrated. Russell just didn't know what he was doing, I feel like. Like, he claims to know, but I really don't think he knew. And then Parvati just played excellently. She was like the female Russell, except she at least earned the jury's respect. She was a lot better socially, great physically, great strategically, so my vote would have gone to Parvati there. All right, Survivor Nicaragua. We have Fabio versus Chase versus Sash. I would have voted for Fabio here. I love Fabio's game. I think it's so underrated. The way he, like, told the jury, like, oh, I played dumb so that I wouldn't piss anybody off. Unconventional, but it worked. And then, of course, he won a bunch of immunity challenges at the end there to get himself to the end, so gotta give him respect for that. I don't really like Chase. Don't really care for Sash that much either, so yeah, I would have voted for Fabio. Season 22, Redemption Island. We have Philip versus Natalie versus Boston Rob. Boston Rob, come on. Like, can you really vote for anybody else in this situation? It's one of the easiest ones ever. Boston Rob played one of the most dominant strategic games I think we've ever seen. Natalie and Philip were just there to be finalists for him. So, yeah, easy one there. Boston Rob. Survivor South Pacific, we have Albert versus Coach versus Sophie. I absolutely hate this final three. This is a garbage-ass final three. None of them were likable, but if I had to vote for one of them, I guess Coach. I don't like Sophie's game. I don't like Albert's game either. I don't like Coach's game, but I do think Coach played the best strategic game. The problem was he just didn't own it at the final tribal. I wish he had. But still, I do think I would have given my vote to him again. Like, it's picking the least of three evils here. That's really what it is. But I do think I would have voted for Coach. Up next, we have Survivor One World with Kim, Sabrina, and Chelsea. Kim, that's another easy one. Kim dominated the game in pretty much every asset. Sabrina and Chelsea did nothing. So, yeah. Survivor Philippines, we have Denise versus Michael Skupin versus Lisa. Some people said they would have voted Lisa here. I'm not really sure why. Because, yeah, she was a nice person, but her game wasn't that great, I don't think. So, yeah, I would have voted for Denise here. Like, that seems like an easy choice for me, at least. She was an underdog. She went to every single tribal council. She was fantastic socially. She was probably the strongest woman out there physically. She was also the smallest. So, what does that say about the women this season? So, yeah. And then she was great strategically as well, teaming up with Malcolm, which, by the way, I wish Malcolm was in the final three. He would easily have my vote, but between these three, I do think Denise deserves it the most. Up next, Survivor Blood versus Water with Tyson, Jervis, and Monica. I would have voted for Tyson. That's a pretty easy choice there. Monica and Jervis, I just didn't really care for this season. Tyson, I do think, played a fantastic game, and it was a comeback story for him. I mean, he went from voting himself out in Heroes vs. Villains to like playing a great strategic, social, and physical game. So, yeah, I do think Tyson deserves it. So, Tyson. Up next, Survivor Cagayan. Tony versus Wu. This one still pains me because I love Wu. He was one of my favorites that season along with Spencer. I wish he had taken Cass to the end because I do think he would have won, but he was dumb. He took Tony, and for that, I gotta vote for Tony. Tony played one of the best games ever, I think, that season. He was like the Russell Hantz, but with a much better social game, I think. And so, yeah, he was looking for idols 24/7, according to Spencer. So, yeah, Tony, absolutely Tony gets my vote there. Survivor San Juan del Sur, we got Natalie versus Jacqueline versus Missy. Natalie would have gotten my vote. She's a great player overall. She was a player that kind of surprised me, actually. I hated her in The Amazing Race. I hated her and her sister in The Amazing Race. But she was good at Survivor. Was a lot more likable. So, yeah, gotta commend Natalie for that. Natalie Anderson definitely gets my vote between those three. Survivor Worlds apart, we have Mike versus Carolyn versus Will. Mike, without question, would have got my vote. I love Mike. He's one of my favorite winners. He was the hero against a bunch of villains, and he ended up winning the whole freaking thing. I loved watching him go on that immunity run, playing his idol to save himself and get rid of Tyler, who was his biggest threat at that point. Loved Mike's game. He absolutely deserves it. Up next, Survivor Cambodia with Jeremy, Spencer, and Tasha. I really like this final three. I like Spencer, I like Tasha, but Jeremy definitely played the best game here. He deserves my vote. Kelly Wentworth, I think if she had made it to the end, I think I would have voted for her. But between Jeremy, Spencer, and Tasha, Jeremy I do think played the best game overall, so I would have voted for Jeremy. Up next, Survivor Co-Wrong. We have Aubrey versus Ty versus Michelle. Believe it or not, after rewatching this season, I probably would have voted for Michelle here. I was originally going to say Ty because, I'm not an Aubrey fan. I don't like her game. I was never really a big fan of it. Always thought she was kind of overrated. She needed a lot of help from other people, mainly Ty and Neil. But I like Michelle's game. She rose to the occasion and did everything she needed to do to win with the final jury vote out and all that. Winning challenges. Ty kind of misplayed some advantages toward the end there. His game. So yeah, Aubrey and Ty got weaker while Michelle got stronger. So I got to commend Michelle for that. Michelle, I think, deserves it. Another controversial one, but I think she deserves it. Sorry. Up next, Survivor, Millennials versus Gen X. We have Hannah versus Ken versus Adam. Adam, easily. Ken and Hannah did absolutely nothing. Ken even blew his one chance at winning by voting for David, I think. I think if he had voted for Adam and Adam beat David in fire, I think Ken might have had a chance, but Adam, easily. he always kept the bigger threats in the game so that people wouldn't target him, so like Jay and David, but and then he cut him loose at the end. So yeah, I like Adam's game. Adam definitely deserves it. Survivor Game Changers, we have Sarah versus Brad versus Troyzan. I think I would have voted for Sarah here. I don't necessarily like Sarah, but I will admit she played a fantastic game here. Brad was great physically, but he was terrible socially, and strategically it was overshadowed by Sarah, I think. And then Troyzan just did absolutely nothing. Again, I wish Sari was there. I think Sari would have made it had it not been for that dumbass advantage get in at the final 6, but between the 3, I gotta go with Sarah. Up next, we have Survivor Heroes, Healers, Hustlers with Ben, Ryan, and Chrissy. Ben. Definitely Ben gets my vote. Oh, but the game was rigged for him. Anybody could have gone looking for an idol, okay? Anybody could have. But Ben was the only one that did it. He was the only one. And, like, I do think if Devin had beat Ben in the Fire Challenge, I would have voted for Devin, but Ben definitely gets my vote between the 3. Gotta vote for the best player, no matter how unfair a twist might be. Ben was just the better player, so I gotta vote for Ben here. Up next, we got Ghost Island with Dominic, Wendell, and Laurel. I would have voted for Dominic here. I think, looking back on this season, Dominic was masterful with his strategic play. He had so many advantages, and yeah, Wendell did too, but Wendell was kind of just his wingman. I do think Dominic was just the better player overall. He's one of the best runner-ups ever, I think. He's up there with Boston Rob for me, and I think if there is a runner-up season ever, Dominic should be a lock to be on that season. So, yeah, like between those 3, Dominic, I think, gets my vote there. So up next, we have Survivor David versus Goliath with Nick, Mike, and Angelina. I think I would have voted for Nick here. I like Nick. I like his game. I think it was good socially, and it was good physically and strategically as well. He was kind of like Adam in a way, where a lot of the bigger threats, like he had in front of him, like Christian and Davey. So I gotta respect Nick's game here. I think he played very well. So my vote would go to Nick. Survivor Edge of Extinction, we have Chris versus Gavin versus Julie. I'm still super upset that Rick Devens wasn't in this final 3 because he absolutely would have gotten my vote here. But I've talked about this before. I would have voted for Gavin, I think. I feel like Chris was benefited way too much by unfair advantages that he had coming back from the edge. I mean, he was on the edge. He got to form relationships with everybody on the jury, whereas Gavin and Julie didn't get to do that. And he also had that idol coming back in. He was the only person to know about Lauren's idol. He was also the only person that knew Victoria was playing a very good under-the-radar type of game, so he kind of screwed up both their games in a way. Not his fault, but the fact that he just benefited from all of that makes it harder to vote for him in my eyes. Like, yeah, I know I said with Ben, like, yeah, Ben was benefited by the fire-making challenge, but I think Gavin played a good game here. I don't really think Chrissy and Ryan played that great of games. At least not like Gavin did. Gavin made it to the end without receiving a single vote against him. And it's not like he wasn't a threat. He was great socially, and he won a couple of immunity challenges, and overall, like, he had a good strategic game. He kind of used Rick Devens as a shield. Granted, Rick Devens was kind of using himself as a shield for Gavin, but yeah, like, between the 3 of them, like, Chris just had way too many things going for him, way too many things benefiting him, whereas Gavin did not. So I would have voted for Gavin, I think. Survivor Island of the Idols. I hate this season. Y'all know how much I hate it based on my review. But with this final 3, we have Dean, Tommy, and Nora. I like Tommy a lot, and I probably would expect to vote for him. But honestly, the more I think about it, the more I like Dean's game a lot. I think I might have actually voted for Dean here. I mean, he was a guy who was kind of under the radar at the beginning, and then he kind of rose up toward the end of the game, kind of like how Michelle did in Survivor Co. Wrong. Like, he used advantages to his benefit. He also, like, a lot of people forget this, but Tommy was saved a couple times by other people. He was saved by Elaine at Final 10 or whatever that was when Missy was voted out. Like, he was saved by Elaine and Karishma, and then he was saved later by Dean when I think Karishma was supposed to be voted out. Everyone had planned on voting for Tommy and blindsiding him, but Dean stepped in and, like, shook up that entire tribal. So, yeah, like, he was saved a couple times. He didn't really need to win immunities, but he also had a lot of allies on his side. And Dean kind of did too. So, honestly, the more I think about it, the more I lean towards voting for Dean here. So, yeah, like, I like Tommy a lot. I think he had a great social game, but I think in the end, I think I would have voted for Dean. And then, finally, Season 40, Survivor Winners at War. We have Tony versus Michelle versus Natalie. Tony, without question. How did this man go from being one of the biggest players ever in Survivor Cagayan? Like, people should have been like, oh my gosh, this is Tony. He is so good. He's great. He's a huge threat. We need to get rid of him right away. He didn't get a single vote against him throughout the whole game. How does that happen? And yeah, he played idols a couple times. He won a lot of immunities, but still, how does that happen? Even the times when, like, that move on Sophie was amazing. That sniper shot. That's where he really started to up his game. He was kind of, like, he knew what he needed to do. He was super quiet at the beginning of the game. He didn't want to go around crazy looking for idols or anything like that, because otherwise that would expose him. But yeah, he didn't do that, and like, he probably made the best adjustments to his game overall. And like, yeah, Natalie, once again, like with Chris, she benefited from a lot of things. And she also didn't do what Chris did. Chris gave up his necklace to face Rick Devens in fire. Natalie did not do that. So yeah. And then Michelle, again, I think Michelle played a solid game, but she was just so overshadowed by Tony. So, without question, Tony gets my vote here. Arguably the greatest player we've ever seen in Survivor history. And there it is, guys. There is who I would have voted for in every single Survivor season. Let me know down below in the comments who you would have voted for in every single Survivor season. So, like, do you agree with my picks? Do you disagree with my picks? Let me know down below. Again, leave your list. Who would you have voted for in every Survivor season? Leave it down in the comments. Make sure to drop a thumbs up button, or make sure to drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it. And make sure to subscribe to my channel for more content to come in the future. And just a quick reminder for my Q&A coming up this Saturday. I think this Saturday is when I'm going to film it, so this will be your final, or I guess maybe not your final reminder, but this is a reminder. Make sure to go back to that other video where I announced the Q&A and leave your questions down below in the comment section of that video. Again, I'm only going to be answering questions from the comment section of that video. So if you have questions for me, leave it in the comment section of that video and that video only. So yeah, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more content to come in the future. And until that Q&A video on Saturday, once again, my name is the California Cougar. And always remember to stay California cool. Peace!